that for 6 years in secret the British Foreign Office funded an ostensibly independent news outlet in Egypt to the tune of £2 million. Its coverage was in both English and Arabic. Its reports were picked up by local and international media in the manner of a newswire. This was by design. It was established at a highly significant time politically in October 2011. This is when Cairo is, of course, preparing to embrace representative democracy for the very first time in its history, and Western powers, in particular Britain, Cairo's former imperial overlord and its biggest investor in the modern day, were extremely anxious about the prospect of the Muslim Brotherhood seizing power. Aswat Masriya granted London an enormous degree of narrative control as events unfolded in the country, and we see this from its coverage. It undermined Mohammed Morsi, it promoted the bogus student group Tamarod, which leaked recordings, of course, subsequently revealed was covertly created by the Egyptian military chiefs and financed by the UAE. It justified Morsi's ouster in a violent military coup, and it whitewashed the violence of General Sisi's government. We approached Reuters, the Thomson Reuters Foundation and the Foreign Office, of course, but we heard nothing back. The Grey Zone has previously spoken to Reuters, though, due to a leak of separate documents revealing that TRF, the Thomson Reuters Foundation, an alleged charitable arm of Reuters, was contracted by the British Foreign Office to carry out covert operations weakening the Russian state's influence. At that time, spokespeople for these organisations stressed TRF was a completely separate entity to Reuters. Aswat Masriya demonstrates this to be a total lie. It was run out of Reuters' Cairo offices. Its 300-strong staff were trained by Reuters reporters, and Reuters reporters contributed to the outlet. Its reports were also amplified and recycled by Reuters. Yes, I mean, our investigation raises very obvious questions about whether Reuters can be trusted. Its journalists are routinely seconded to operations just like this in countries of interest, quote unquote, to the British Foreign Office. Do its journalists really stop being agents of the British state when they return to their day jobs as objective, neutral reporters? Well, the journalists involved didn't reveal quite how much money was funneled into the project by the Foreign Office, and it's very striking they only made this funding clear after Aswat Masriya stopped operating. On the first point, the sheer scale of the funding, which, yes, was completely secret throughout Aswat Masriya's existence, is truly extraordinary. And that's wholly new. £2 million British pounds is a vast amount of money in Egyptian terms, and such a vast outlay shows that London meant business here. This cash would not have been spent on creating a media outlet in Cairo, or indeed anywhere else, for no reason, without a very clear expectation of return on investment. Britain had enormous political and financial interests to protect in the country, and it does to this day. As I say, Aswat Masriya operated out of Reuters' Cairo offices. It was, to all intents and purposes, a Reuters asset, publicly posing as an independent grassroots news portal. It wouldn't have existed were it not for Reuters. But I think that more significantly, the reason why I say that, that Reuters helped overthrow Egyptian democracy was that it was Reuters who led the charge on misreporting on the size and nature of anti-Morsi protests in late June and early July 2013. Which were fundamental to the president's ouster. As I noted in my investigation, it uncritically repeated briefings from military chiefs that there were 14 million demonstrators on the street. They verified the total as credible, while admitting it did seem implausibly high. I mean, because it was completely ludicrous. There were 1 or 2 million at the absolute most. But this figure was picked up the world over, and it helped frame the narrative that Morsi was hated by the majority of Egyptians and they wanted him gone, when polling put his support at 53% of the public. That is a figure that many Western leaders, can only dream of securing today. And then the army stepped in and they explicitly used the protests, the alleged size of the protest, to justify, what was a military coup, which they claimed was not a military coup. Were it not for the intervention of Reuters, Sisi may not have been able to justify his seizure of power, and Egypt might be a very different country today.